The narrative takes place during the Viking Age, where wars were constant in the pursuit of power and territory among the Norsemen. Brutal battles that destroyed entire peoples until not even a single man remained alive. The weather is wintry, and the scene then presents a Native American woman narrating that, for generations, her people have inhabited and possessed those lands. She says there is a prophecy that claims a spirit in the form of a white animal will appear during difficult times, but terrifying changes will come in the following years. However, someone will arrive who will once again bring peace to those lands. The woman is named Kiona, a member of the clan known as the Pathfinders. She was walking while gathering branches to make a fire when she spotted a beautiful white horse. Admiring the animal, she followed it through the forest until she lost sight of it, when she came across a large destroyed Viking ship at the edge of the river. Curious about the great structure, she entered the vessel, but soon encountered the horrifying scene of lifeless bodies hanging inside. Kiona screams in shock until she is confronted by a boy holding a sword. He looks different from her people, and she knows he is not from that country. She suspects he was also one of the prisoners who survived. He is weak and in need of help. Being a kind woman, she approaches and shelters the young boy. It is not known exactly what happened there, but all the crew members were completely destroyed, and by the condition of the ship and everyone inside, it has already been several days. Back at her clan, the leaders say that the young boy cannot stay with them. It is revealed that the boy is a Viking, and since he is not one of them, he will bring even greater misfortune upon their people. The oldest leader calls him an evil creature, but a companion states that he is only a boy in need of care. Another leader says the boy must leave because he will become evil just like his parents. Kiona asks to speak and says the boy should be cared for, otherwise they will show cruelty by letting him die in the cold, alone. One of the kindest leaders and Kiona's companion, named Sani, says the boy will stay with them because he knows the future was determined for him to remain there. Later, he is seen under Kiona's care, now responsible for him. While sleeping, he has memories of the cruelties his Viking people committed against the natives of those lands. He witnessed chaos and death, something that traumatized him. When his father ordered him to finish off another young boy, he refused to commit such evil and was punished immediately, being whipped and soon abandoned behind. During the night, when he wakes up, he stands and picks up a piece of wood, perhaps to hurt his new caretakers, but he only throws it into the fire. Then he sits beside the campfire and admires his father's sword. The scene changes to 15 years in the future, where the small native clan lives beside a great river connected to the open sea. The natives live in harmony with the outsider who lives among them, the young man who was given the name Ghost, which means the phantom. One day, an old acquaintance of the clan, known as the Wise Pathfinder, arrives at the village with part of his people and tells the tribe's new leader, Sani, that he came for reasons beyond simply visiting them. At that moment, Ghost admires a beautiful woman known as Starfire, the visitor's daughter. But beside her, a native close to her named Blackwing notices who she was exchanging glances with, though the phantom disappears. When everyone introduces themselves, the warriors shake hands, but Blackwing does not greet Ghost, knowing he was the one admiring Starfire. Back with the leaders, Sani asks what troubled Pathfinder, and he explains that during a winter hunt, 3 hunting groups, including his successor who would take his place, were killed in a natural disaster. Pathfinder says he did not choose anyone capable, and among all those who came with them, he will still choose his successor. On this day, the blessing will be held for the new braves who will walk beside him and have the chance to become the leader of his clan. Suddenly, he sees Ghost, and using ritual stones, feels that the prophecy is about to be fulfilled. On the night of the same day, Pathfinder says the tribe has the authority to choose the next successor, and some warriors are prepared for the ritual. When it is Ghost's turn, Pathfinder prevents his participation, claiming that he needs to earn the right to be one of them and must free himself from the torments of his past, otherwise he has no right to explore the domain of a people. Phantom becomes frustrated, then stands and leaves, declaring that he will make his own destiny. Ghost goes into the forest and trains with the sword he inherited. His adoptive father approaches and is questioned about why the young man's desire to become a brave is denied every time. However, knowing of this obstacle, His father says he was born among enemies, a factor that prevents him from becoming a brave, though Sani claims that Ghost is one of them. The next day, the warriors prepare to explore other places, and Phantom admires Starfire's departure. Later, Ghost says goodbye to his father and goes hunting. Before leaving, he follows his sister into the forest and advises her not to wander too far away. He follows another path and leaves the little girl with the family dog. A few minutes later, among the vegetation, the beastly Vikings emerge, warrior men dressed in armor, animal furs, and terrifying helmets. They kill the pet and then surround the little girl. They let her run desperately and smile at her fear. They allow her to leave, and when she reaches the village and throws herself into her mother's arms, the fierce men begin the attack against the clan, mercilessly killing many natives. From afar, Ghost hears the sound of Viking horns and runs back as fast as he can. From the other side of the river, he witnesses the destruction, the chaos, and the screams of death coming from his village, a scene that torments him and fills his heart with fury. Later, when he returns, he can only see death everywhere, and unfortunately his relatives were victims of the massacre. Not far from there, he hears war cries and shield drumming. We see Sani being confronted and wounded by an enemy warrior. Suddenly, the leader interrupts the fight, stating that the man, as a leader, should be treated with respect, but immediately afterward demonstrates the opposite. He grabs the sword and kills the man. At that moment, Phantom enters the circle of enemies and witnesses his father's death before his eyes. Thinking he is just another native wanting to fight for his freedom, they offer him Sani's sword. The native shows no reaction, making everyone around believe he must be harmless. Soon, a warrior approaches him but is killed, and the second leader has his eye ripped out by one of Phantom's blows. Knowing he will not stand a chance there, Ghost runs into the forest and his enemies pursue him. Knowing the region, the warrior Phantom runs as fast as he can, making clear the legacy of his youth. The sharpened hunting tactics from the attacks his Viking people carried out against the weak. A Viking hunter searches for the man among the vegetation, but is surprised by Phantom, who emerges from the water and kills him quickly, not allowing him to make any sound. Seeing more enemies approaching, he mounts a horse and leaves the place. Along the way, he faces another rider, but furiously knocks him off the horse and kills him without much struggle. Ghost climbs the mountain where there is a small house to retrieve his belongings, but other warriors arrive. One of them strikes him in the back with an arrow, but even wounded, Phantom throws himself through the snow, sliding with the Viking shield. The fierce men continue the pursuit, seeking to destroy him, but Ghost uses the terrain to his advantage, and the last warriors he finishes off by forcing them to crash into sharpened stakes. Finally, he falls into a waterfall and escapes the attack of his enemies. Hours later, we see Ghost seeking shelter to recover and think about where he should go. Meanwhile, the Vikings wonder about the skilled native and kill the warrior who failed to bring back his body. The leader says he will destroy everyone on that continent and then live there forever. The next day, Ghost walks through the forest to reach the next clan and warn them about the attack on his people. However, knowing it is not safe to speak there, he does not reveal his presence to the natives. A few minutes later, Pathfinders group tracks clues left along the trail and follows them into a cave, while Pathfinder merely watches his warriors entering the place, imagining something is wrong. Inside the cave, the group is surprised to see Ghost there, but the wounded man cannot speak. Suddenly, a great bear appears and growls fiercely at the group. To save them from the attack, Pathfinder shouts and draws the beast toward himself, then kneels before the animal. The beast runs toward him, but the experienced leader suddenly rises and pierces the bear with his spear. Meanwhile, the Vikings track the blood trail of the wounded Phantom with hunting dogs, and the brutal hunters continue the chase, seeking revenge against the native who wounded their leader. At night, we see Pathfinder's clan dancing and enjoying a happy moment in their village, still unaware of the danger approaching, and while caring for the unconscious Ghost, they are not warned by him about the imminent attack. Pathfinder uses his spiritual knowledge and helps the warrior recover. When his father leaves, Starfire stays beside Ghost, awaiting his awakening and showing affectionate care. At dawn, the village is informed about their enemies, and Ghost says the Vikings will destroy everything and leave only one of them alive. But they wound him in the tongue so he cannot speak, and then follow him to the next clan and commit the same atrocities until none of his people remain alive. Ghost says his village was devastated and asks to be left behind, but the warrior Blackwing asks him to stay and fight with them. However, Phantom unsheathes his sword and cuts the warrior's spear, splitting it in half easily. He states that every Viking possesses a sharp blade like his. He reveals more about the enemies and says they wear armor that stone arrows will not pierce, and if they decide to fight, everyone will die. The only likely choice is to flee as far away as possible and perhaps survive by hiding. Later, the Vikings arrive at the cave where Ghost was found and are getting closer and closer to the natives' village. Back at the Pathfinders clan, the people prepare to leave. Leader Pathfinder asks Starfire and Blackwing to guide the people eastward to the bay and instructs them where to travel safely, saying that once they reach the fork after the mountains, they should head east because the western trail is unsafe. After the instructions, Pathfinder asks what Ghost will do. The warrior says he will kill every Viking he can, even if it causes his own death. Pathfinder does not stop the man from leaving and allows a mute warrior named Jester to go with him, even though Ghost does not want company. Pathfinder's people continue through the dense forest, while he remains behind. They must be careful not to leave clues about where they are going. Unfortunately, a little girl drops her doll, and no one notices the object. Moving farther away, Ghost and Jester arrive at an old enemy camp, which happens to be empty, but knowing his oppressors, Phantom knows they will soon return. Back with the Pathfinders group, Blackwing realizes Starfire is no longer among them and knows she returned to stay with Ghost. He invites his companions to return and fight, but his brother Windhand confronts him, stating that he wishes to return to obtain what is not destined for him, Starfire's love. His brother does not listen and leaves him in charge of the clan. Later, we see Starfire heading in the opposite direction, seeking Ghost, who at that moment prepares weapons and traps to surprise his enemies. Night falls, and the Vikings find the abandoned village and know they are close to their victims. Back at the cave where Ghost is, he wakes up frightened and steps outside for fresh air. It does not take long before Starfire confronts Ghost about his thirst for revenge. She says that two things drive a warrior: love and fury, and whichever is fed the most always wins. Their feelings connected from the first day they saw each other, and a kiss becomes inevitable. Consequently, a romance is born. A few minutes later, they talk, and Ghost says his former people are brutal like wild animals, and they live to raid, destroy, and die if necessary to possess more than they need. At that moment, they hear the sound of Viking trumpets in the distance and immediately prepare for the reunion. Near dawn, an enemy warrior enters the cave but is quickly killed by Phantom. Another walks through the area but is mortally wounded by a trap. More Viking hunters approach the location, and when one of them checks the dead companion's body, he discovers in the worst possible way that Ghost is the one in disguise. When the leading riders arrive at the old camp, Ghost surprises the last one and kills him mercilessly. Minutes later, the Vikings encounter the horse dragging the dead man, and a war cry echoes from atop the hill, showing them the enemy is near. When the warrior goes to check whether his companion is alive, he is cut down by the swords of the warrior Phantom, who furiously continues his relentless revenge, killing as many as he can. There are too many of them, so Ghost retreats, seeking to separate the enemy group. Hidden in a trap, Jester and Starfire intercept a rider and quickly kill him. Then the two natives continue their plan, luring the Viking warriors one by one and helping Ghost destroy the enemies of his people. A few minutes later, Ghost remains atop the rocks before his trap, waiting for more opponents to advance. However, his plan collapses when Blackwing's group unexpectedly appears wanting to attack the enemies. Yet they themselves are caught in the trap, and many die after falling into the pit prepared for the Vikings, while those still alive are finished off by the barbarians. Fortunately, Blackwing manages to be rescued by Phantom, and both leave the place. Unfortunately, knowing he will only delay Ghost, Blackwing asks his companion to leave and become the protection Starfire needs, while he accepts his fate and fights until his end for the people. After his friend departs, he succumbs to the enemy attack. Later, Ghost waits for the Vikings to enter the cave, where there are many chains of tunnels and rocks everywhere. In another area not far from the entrance, Starfire is nearly wounded by one of the strong men, but Jester uses his fragile spear to lure the fierce enemy and ends up being killed. Meanwhile, Starfire slips among the rocks, trying to escape from one of the hunters. Luckily, Ghost appears before she is found and hides her from the enemies. Outside, the Viking leader places Blackwing over a fire so that his screams echo inside the cave and lure the Phantom. Atop the mountain, Ghost and Starfire watch the suffering of their companion, but they can do nothing. Suddenly, an arrow passes near them and finishes off the native. Pathfinder appears to end the suffering of one of his people and confronts Phantom's thirst for revenge. Then they climb into the forest, where they fight some of the enemies who reached them, striking their vital points with the weapons they possess. Unfortunately, they are few and end up captured by the Vikings. The leader, named Gunnar, questions the three about the location of the other village, but no one speaks. As a consequence, leader Pathfinder is tied with ropes pulled by horses, and even seeing his suffering, Ghost says nothing. His father's death brings pain, but Starfire remains silent. Minutes later, Phantom is brought before Gunnar, who recognizes the young man's appearance, knowing he is the son of a Viking. Not receiving the desired answer about the next village, he brings Starfire before them and threatens to cut off her hand. Fearing for the safety of his beloved and passion, Ghost interrupts them and says he will lead them there under the agreement that they will leave her alive. However, the agreement displeases Starfire because she would rather die than betray part of her people. The enemies drag the two along the path the natives traveled, and Ghost protects his beloved when warriors attempt to touch her inappropriately. Wanting to comfort his companion, Ghost tells her that her captors know winter well on their continent, but in that region the situation favors them. Following the trail through the forest, they see traces left by the natives during their escape, and luckily Ghost hides the doll left behind. Later, the group reaches the fork, and Phantom asks Starfire to create a distraction. At that moment, he drops the doll and steps on it to show the natives followed that path, exactly the path that Master Pathfinder advised them not to follow. Gunnar becomes suspicious, but when his warrior finds the toy, he agrees to head west. Soon night arrives as they reach the frozen lake. Ghost asks them to go around it, but the brutes refuse, thinking he wants to delay them. Consequently, the weight breaks the ice, and many fall into the freezing water. Unfortunately, none of the Vikings succumb to the cold, and after everyone climbs out, they continue the journey through the side mountains. Following the trail through the freezing route, Starfire presents the group of Pathfinders who died, which is why her father prevented them from taking that path. Moving forward, the group walks through a narrow canyon. The place is dangerous, but even so Ghost guides them, stating they must tie themselves to one another. Gunnar ignores him until one of his men slips and falls down the mountain into the abyss. Then Gunnar orders Phantom to walk ahead, and already suspecting something, Ghost observes the snow-loaded mountains, an imminent avalanche risk, though his captors do not realize it. Reaching a dead end, Ghost is confronted, but he shows that his objective is near. At Phantom's request, Starfire strikes him, making the situation seem more realistic. Having the opportunity to whip her back, Ghost uses an elastic band, but instead turns it into a sling and launches a stone into the forehead of the last Viking in the line, causing them to fall one by one. Those in front try to hold the companions who fall, but the second in command cuts the rope to survive the trap. Gunnar, realizing the setup, fights Ghost and Starfire. he is soon wounded and knocked down. Seeing that Starfire would be dragged away, Ghost cuts her rope and, to avoid falling with her, is forced to throw himself while holding onto a tree. Unfortunately, his enemies also survive by holding on. However, Gunnar wounds his own companion to reduce the extra weight and be able to climb. Soon he reaches Ghost and engages in combat. During the fight, the rope tied to Ghost is cut, leaving him hanging only by the rocks. He tells Starfire to run before the evil Gunnar reaches her. At that moment, Ghost begins screaming loudly, and his voice echoes with strong vibration through the mountain, causing cracks in the ice and soon a massive avalanche. The Vikings who manage to cling to the rocks below are caught by surprise, and the end for those enemies arrives. Believing it is over, Ghost grabs his sword, but Gunnar appears still alive and confronts him at the base of a rock beside the abyss. His opponent is strong, but the fearless phantom pierces him with a sword and determines the end of his oppressor, taking back leader Pathfinder's necklace. Then another avalanche, even more monstrous, sweeps across the mountain, a devastating force from which no one can escape except by a miracle. Later, Starfire reaches the remainder of her people, claiming that everyone died. She is welcomed into the small improvised village by the sea, and a few hours later everyone stops their tasks and watches Ghost, still alive, approaching. Fortunately, he survived the avalanche, becoming a strong Pathfinder warrior worthy of being a son of their land, just like Starfire. He gives the necklace to the rightful heir of the clan leadership. Then, proving that Ghost is the man of the prophecy, the white horse from the beginning appears before the people, declaring the end of the cycle, a sign of eternal peace for them. Everyone bows before the couple, and Starfire also recognizes him as the spirit of the prophecy, who will guide her people for many years ahead, in fullness and in the hope of peace.